What's a sign of childhood trauma? In some cases, excessive people-pleasing tendencies. Yep, if anyone is interested in this, Google fawning. It's an alternative to fight, flight, freeze. Not an expert, just a survivor, but from what I understand, experienced, it manifests when a victim can't get out of an unsafe situation and ends up people-pleasing as an attempt to avoid setting off their abuser or minimize the extent of the abuse. Traumatized children often over-gravitate to one of these response patterns to survive, and as time passes, these four modes become elaborated into entrenched defensive structure. Pete Walker, Complex PTSD, From Surviving to Thriving ** Response ** Mechanism. Defense, mechanism, fight ** rage to be safe. Narcissistic, control to connect. Flight ** perfect to be safe. Obsessive, compulsive, perfect to connect. Freeze ** hide to be safe. Dissociative, no way I'll connect. Fawn ** grovel to be safe. Codependent, merge to connect. Also not an expert, just a survivor as well. My personal theory is that each response mechanism maps on to the big five emotions: anger, disgust, fear, sadness, and joy deferred. Quick lesson from years of therapy: if you don't learn how to respect and honor your emotions by letting them speak in healthy ways internally, then they are bound to morph into pathologies that end up popping out sideways or backwards socially. Pete Walker saved my fucking life. A therapist of mine gave me the Tao of fully feeling about 10 years ago, and it just made everything that I was feeling and dealing with make so much more sense. I was unemployed, had no friends, no self-esteem, no skills, no real plan or purpose in my life. I was quite sure I was gonna kill myself by the end of 2013. But now I have a college degree, a very good job, an even better one lined up, pursuing a significant professional license, a real sense of purpose, and, most importantly, some of the best friends I could have ever asked for. I'll have to look into that because I really need some help. Get both of his books. Try to find a therapist, social worker you trust, if you can. I hope things get better for you and that these books can help you find your strength again. Yeah, the other day my therapist said something about fight, flight, freeze, or please, and it blew my mind because I'd never heard it before, and my default is definitely please. It really clicked for me. Mind-blowing for those of us who didn't have this concept at hand. Thanks for sharing, peeps. Fuck people-pleasing. People-pleasing can be super problematic, but for those who it comes naturally to, it isn't 100% a bad thing. And it's certainly not something that everyone can just fully move past. Sometimes, it just means we inherently cannot turn off our ability to care deeply about others, which means we need to be in environments where our care can be put to good use rather than exploited. Hyper-independence. Can't be let down if you never ask for anything in the first place. Difficulties trusting, low self-esteem, fears of being judged. Wow, I have all three. Ding ding ding, we are the winners, because I have all of them as well. I am always scared that people are mad at me. Always. Unable to forgive themselves for small mistakes. The more I go down, the more I realize, fuck. I'm right there with you. Unfortunately. Trouble forming relationships. Fuck. Completely shutting down when criticized or corrected. Took me years to get past this. Edit. Okay, was not expecting this level of response. Hell, I didn't even know this was a diagnosis with a name. Rejection-sensitive dysphoria. In an attempt to answer questions, I'll explain as succinctly as possible. TL. Doctor at the bottom. Backstory. My parents are boomers. Dad grew up in a coal mining town in southern Illinois, was a Vietnam Marine turned missionary in Uganda in the late 70s. Interesting times, is his description. Mom grew up in Savannah, Georgia and survived the civil rights and integration riots of the Deep South. Became a missionary to South America also in the late 70s. Viva la Revolution. So, suffice it to say they've lived through some shit and are orders of magnitude harder fucks than I'll ever be. They didn't have the tools we do today to diagnose and cope, so they internalized all of it instead, on top of a ton of old-fashioned generational blue-collar trauma. As is tradition, it was passed on to me. How I recognized and started treating it. Boot camp got the ball rolling. It keeps you at a functional high level of stress, to the point you just have to deal with it. There's no time to shut down or feel sorry for yourself. You showed up behind schedule and don't realize you've caught up until you get to your first unit and oversleep for the first time on your day off. I looked up and my then girlfriend spotted it. She stopped letting me retreat to my dark place. I eventually married her. Even then it was years before we realized how broken I was. I found mentors in different areas of interest. Some were authors or had podcasts. The main one was a gunsmith and had a PhD of history who took me in when my parents split. He gave solid advice which I took to heart. PT. The hardest part is working out and building discipline. Sometimes I have to be at muscle failure before I can think straight. Research. I've been reading up on stress, trauma, PTSD, recovery, historical warrior cultures, meditation. All of it. Been attacking this like an engineer or mechanic instead of a doctor. Lastly, most importantly, I got help from other people. I could not do this alone. It was just too much to process. TL. Dr. 1. Boot camp. No time for self-recrimination. Too much shit to do. 2. Found a friend willing and able to help. 3. Found mentors, in person and in books, podcasts. 4. Physical training, it sucks but works. 5. Researched the topic across multiple disciplines and cultures. Strangely, I never found the RSD diagnosis. 6. I got help. I found people to help me. Yes. I always feel like I have to explain myself because I think people wouldn't criticize or correct me if they knew what I was thinking. How did you get past it? Took me a long time, and working on a small management team with somebody who decided day one that they despised me for no good reason, because we were equal partners, and he was 45 years my senior. Worked with him for 2 years. You can be the sweetest peach in the orchard, some people just don't like peaches. At the end of the day, you can carry that shit home with you and let it give you ulcers, ruin your relationships, or genuinely be at peace with asking yourself, what more could I have done? And having the grace and conviction to be able to tell yourself you did your best. Sometimes those people don't care what you were thinking. And that's okay, you don't have to care what they think of you. That's not your burden to bear. Oversharing when you haven't known the person long, or the opposite where you don't open up to anybody. 2 extremes. What about both? Oversharing with total strangers but not opening up to friends, family. That's me, but not in-person strangers, only online strangers where I can be anonymous. Hypervigilance. Survival technique. The kind where you know a parent is going to fly off the handle by the sound the floor makes when they walk. Not just parents. I have it from severe school bullying. My parents are great. When I eat, I naturally end up eating facing the entrance of whatever room I'm in. I stand with my back to the wall on the metro. I really don't like people standing directly behind me, etc. Probably manifests differently from family abuse stuff. But it's definitely a thing. Mine is because kids would sneak up behind me and stab pencil lead into my back and stuff, or staples, while at lunch or whatever. So I ended up getting horse brain and freak out when someone's directly behind me. My head has been on a swivel since I was 7 years old. Too many experiences with too many adults and other kids that taught me I couldn't count on anyone but myself for safety. I didn't truly realize how different I was from folks around me, though. As my own children started to hit the ages that my major traumas hit, it got real tough. Was hard to sleep, would wander the house checking door locks and making sure the kids were breathing. Couldn't relax at the park, near water, or anywhere with crowds. Always checking for exits and running through escape plans in my head. Nightmares about being trapped and unable to make it to loved ones in Time to save them. Just constant panic. When the pandemic hit, I finally realized that this wasn't run-of-the-mill anxiety and it was definitely affecting my family, my health, etc. Started therapy in 2020 and it's been a difficult but amazing process. 10 out of 10 would recommend therapy to every single person. Getting disproportionately frustrated at themselves for small accidents such as spilling things, accidentally breaking something, etc. What happens is, a lot of these people would be abused as a kid. For these things, so as an adult when it happens, their brain overloads their system with fear and anxiety, and frustration can be secondary emotion to that. So when these things happens, this is basically a conditioned response because your brain associates these accidents with imminent danger. This is why therapy is so important for people who had shit childhoods.